So the transfer to ambulance billing, why are we transferring that 130,000 to ambulance billing fund?
The ambulance billing fund is where the leases will be paid, where you see on this sheet, for the cars.
What page are you on?
No, he's looking at page 10 for the transfers. And then there's just a projection. When I passed out this long sheet to show the purchases, and these leases are run through the ambulance billing. There's two components to the ambulance billing. There's a fire department section, and there's also a section for the police, where all of their non-personnel expenses are captured. And so when the leases are paid, they're paid out of that fund. But the money that's being derived and saved is really coming from the general fund based on some of the expenses I have up here.
So if we go to this sheet here, which of these expenses are coming from the general fund? These projected savings?
Well, if you look at OP&F.
OP&F, general fund.
Right. What I did put on here, which would make this even better, if you notice, I excluded current vehicle repairs, which definitely would belong on the sheet. But the OP&F for sure is being paid from the general fund.
So we're using the savings from the employees making higher contributions to pay for the new vehicles?
No, that's not what that fund is. You notice I had 3 years there, 13, 14, and 15. Previously, the OP&F was paid monthly and now quarterly. So, it was paid quarterly. And then OP&F decided to move everyone to a monthly, but in order to do that, they didn't want to apply the monthly bill, and you still had your quarterly. So, for example, the first quarter of 2013, the first quarter of 2013, which was January, February, March, they allowed us to defer those payments to December of 13, 14, and 15. And then, of course, that May, you had to start that monthly billing. So they didn't want to pay the quarterly and then start you with the monthly. So they allowed the cities, universal, not just Maple Heights, it's everywhere, to take those 3 months and pay December 31st for the next 3 years. This is our last year. We paid 13, 14, and 15. So starting in 16, that $100,000+ will go back to the general fund.
So all of the funding sources for these vehicles are not actually from savings on other vehicles or leases that are up or things of that nature.
Well, sure they are. I listed them here, and I also listed the equipment.
Yes, but you also listed this down here. Additional savings from current 2015 expenses. I'm assuming that this $113,000 you have listed here next to OP&F in 2016, that this $113,000 is a savings from wages, let's say, or personnel, and we're going to apply that $113,000 to paying these new leases?
No, it's not a savings from wages. It's a deferred payment, just like you go.
From personnel costs.
Well, you can say it's from
Yes.
personal costs if you wish, right? Just like you go to a furniture store, wherever they say you have 90-day free interest or year free interest. It's basically the same concept.
So that's part of this 130 that's going to be transferred to the ambulance billing fund to pay for the leases.
Yes.
And while we're on this sheet, what is this projected surplus after debt repayment?
Well, after all of the, if you read vertical on the sheet, you'll see where the savings are. If you add them down, it shows the surplus, which is the current expenses minus the payments for the vehicles. I worked out that none of the cars or vehicles will have to have a payment this year. In fact, I think I got a call that the police cars should be coming soon. I don't know who said they were, but nevertheless, I've seen where in the past you have to pay in advance, but they were gracious enough to allow us to pay in arrears so that we did not have to make a payment this year because I knew that this would be falling off. So, if you want to read this vertical, there's the 6,000 plus that's saved from paying off the lease for the 2 Dodge Chargers to Kansas State. And there was no expenses being the vehicles, the police vehicle, the fire pumper, the ambulance. So there was no charges against the 6,000, so the 6,000 is savings.
So then 2016, it shows $92,000 savings up in that top, those top rows, which are, looks like from expiring leases.
Correct.
All that $92,000 from expiring leases.
Correct.
And then you add to that savings from other sources like not needing to pay back the OWDA and not needing to make that contribution to the OPNF.
Mm-hmm.
That adds up to 239. You add the 90 and 239, you get 332 in total savings over what we paid in 2015.
Correct.
Okay. And then you subtracted out the projected leases, and that left you with 210,000 extra unallocated dollars as compared to 2015.
Correct.
And this 90, what source did these come from? These payments for the ambulance, fire cot, etc.
They came from the ambulance building. Most of them, that's why we transferred money there. And we may not need to transfer the entire amount, but I just actually put the payment amount for transfer.
So these all were funded out of the ambulance billing fund,
Except the generators.
the generators. Okay.
They did not come from the ambulance building fund.
And where did they come from?
They were set up in one of the capital funds. I have to look up the fund number. But I guess it was regarded as a capital expense when it was originally leased a few years ago. I took all the details.
It wasn't from the general fund?
Not originally, although there was transfers from the general fund in
To this capital fund?
in some years, not last year.
Okay.
I haven't transferred since I've been here, but going back over history, there have been monies transferred to cover the payment of that from the general fund.
Okay. So if you take out the generators, you had about $40,000 savings within the ambulance billing fund in 2016.
Yes.
Projected for about $40,000.
Mhm.
And the cost of the leases is $120,000, yes?
Mhm. You're correct.
So then we should only need to transfer in about $80,000 to pay those
As I
leases.
said, in the budget, I put the entire amount, but it could be adjusted, and let me see. But to answer your question, it could be 80, it could be 130, depends on what other expenses are going.
But your best estimate right now is 80.
No, my best estimate is what I have on my sheets, because like I said, the ambulance billing covers all of the overhead for fire and police. And part of that overhead was the exhaustive expenses we paid for vehicle repairs, which is unlimited. So that in and of itself could require a transfer. As you know, the general fund is responsible for all the other funds. So if there's deficit in any other fund, the general fund has to handle that.
So this transfer to ambulance billing is for more than vehicle leases.
I didn't say that. I
just said that.
No, I didn't say that. I said that I budgeted to transfer. If you notice this year, I budgeted to transfer money that was not transferred. A perfect example is the bond retirement fund. We received extra money from the county for the bond retirement fund, so everything that was budgeted was not transferred. But we're doing budgeting and planning to ensure that we don't run deficits. So it may be you don't have to transfer anything. It depends on what the other expenses are in ambulance billing. A lot of which, as I stated, were huge repair bills. If we don't have some of those, then we may have we may not have a need to transfer anything. If we don't spend all of the monies that we spent to get the fire engine repaired and the vehicles for the police cars. Now we have new cars and they have 4-year warranties on them. So, I mean, there's no way of saying exactly how much we will spend.
What's included in that 130 then? Why did you pick 130?
I just told you, that's what amounted to the lease. If you added, that's what the lease added up to.
So it is only for leases?
The transfer that's projected and budgeted was to cover the leases for the new vehicles is listed.
Okay, and simultaneously, according to this document, we only need $80,000 additional dollars within that fund.
Maybe.
Well, you're the one who made the document.
Well, and I said why I made it. I don't know what else I could say. I said all I could say. I said I budgeted the payment for the vehicles. Because at this point, the trending with vehicle repairs and all of that did not leave monies to cover any unplanned or other expenses. During the course of the year, if we do not have to repair as many cars then, or, you know, the chief, for example, may not need as much turnout gear, I don't know, then there may be more money. If the money's not needed, it's not transferred. And I gave you a perfect example. You want to check the records. The money that was budgeted in 2015 to cover the bond retirement fund, all of that was not transferred.
But we don't budget dollars to then not spend them. That's not really the point.
A budget is a
You don't project it
plan.
saying, we likely won't spend this. That's not really the way it's supposed to work.
How do I know that maybe there's going to be a windfall? I mean, I have no way of knowing if the county or the state, say, come December, says there's some extra money in your state or local government taxes. If you look at the budget, you'll see for like local government and those, the amount that's budget never equals to the penny of what's actually received. There's no way of knowing that. You don't know that. I mean, different legislators go into office, they vote differently, budgets are passed, the biennium budgets. I have no way of knowing that. I have to plan to cover. I can't plan for a deficit.
So do we need $80,000 or $130,000?
I budgeted what I thought we would need.
So we need $130,000 to cover
That's
the
what I
lease.
budgeted.
Okay.
Ms. Crowell,
Yes.
for those vehicles that are going to be retired, is there, what type of selling value? Mayor, you might know this better than anybody. What kind of selling
Maybe
value?
Captain
or
does.
Captain does.
Well, we got police, we got the fire truck or the EMS and a couple of police vehicles. What, we get only a few thousand for those cars, or
Yeah,
we didn't get that much?
It's, you know, it's generally less than $5,000 if you're ever going to try to transfer a car. We try to use the cars to the very end by using them to have vehicles for the auxiliary force. So we keep the regular vehicles, the newer vehicles for the regular police department and the auxiliaries who do a lot of work for us, but they still can have them. It's an older car, but, you know, and we take what we can off it and use it for the newer vehicles that we get, and then the auxiliaries can drive around and still have a police presence, and we basically run all the cars into the ground. It seems to be the best way, since you don't get much money when you try to sell it. You know, if we got rid of the car after 3 or 4 years and it had, you know, 80 or 100,000 miles on it, and then we tried to sell it to somebody else, and we're gonna be lucky to get $3,000, $4,000 for it. That would be good. So it makes more sense to use it instead of having to buy cars for the auxiliary force.
Are you on page 11?
I think everything else looks pretty
Jackson
self-explanatory.
wanted me to go. Page 11, are there any questions? There was an increase in human resource and HR function. Basically, again, you see legal notices with all of the changes in personnel for the advertisements. You know, I thought that we better put more money there to cover all the postings of the jobs in the newspaper and what have you. And for professional fees, that is tied to the physicals and exams that for hire. So that's basically what those are for, the changes there.
That was for professional fees.
Yes, professional fees, when they have to go for physicals and different things for hire, since we're having quite a few departures.
On page 12, I don't
Just stay on
see.
11 for a second, just
Sure,
a question.
sure.
Absolutely. We jumped from 2014 for OPERS from $815 to $10,000. Can you explain why that jumped?
One of the things that happened in 2014, when I explained when I came last year, that we tried to change the methodology of budgeting. If you remember, all of the fringes were bundled
Right.
together in
Yeah.
the miscellaneous account. That 7170 department, all fringes. And all of the other expenses were in other administrative. Everything was in the 5,500. Last year was our first attempt, within the last couple of months of the year to try to go back and delineate and go back through the records as much as possible and pull out, what we could in the short time to set up a line item budget versus just a group budget. So the expenses from 14 as it relates to fringes, you'll even notice on the fringe benefit line that there's $6,400 there. Okay, well, we don't use that. I mean, we try to be more descriptive, whether it's medical or dental. And it sort of helps in planning and budgeting, or either seeking additional services when we're trying to look for new providers and all. It helps to know the cost of our plans versus just having everything lumped together on the fringe benefits. So if you look at the fringe benefit and the 815, it's pretty close, to so this year we had a better handle because we were just starting in January and costed things out as much as possible. On page 12,
Yes, I noticed you put the codification under council, and you bumped it up quite a bit.
the page,
Oh, yeah, we have to do it every year.
Oh, I know, I think we used to.
No, we only do it once a year. It was 5,000 something
well, I
this year.
did it budget for 2019, so that was 2016. It needs to be done every year.
Right.
Okay, well, then I'll have to add that.
Okay.
So it's not added here.
Aside from that, I think, are there any other questions on,
And another 10.
we move to Mayor's Court? Has anyone got questions there?
Ms. Cole,
Yes.
why the jump in wages within Mayor's Court?
Those were the jump that I explained about Ms. Crosby working with the returns and reconciling the bank statements and doing all the deposits. So we charged her time to work there to that department. And then also, because of hiding the cents and all of this, there's rounding. So, we see some years with rounding as you add this up. And we tried to round for the most part to the nearest dollars.
So in 2016, we'll be charging some of Ms. Crosby's salary to the Mayor's Court because she's assistant, okay?
Well, she's doing some of the basic direct functions. She's not actually working in the mayor's court. We handle all of the monies, the bank statements, the reconciliation, he takes the money to the bank and those kinds of things. But she's not actually working in the mayor's court. She He's handling the banking functions.
Does anyone need to go back and ask any other questions? I think this has been pretty self-explanatory, along with your explanation, Maureen.
Jackie?
Yes?
Moving forward with the budget that we need to come up with for the emergency, if that's not accepted and if we're cut at, 25%, how is that going to reflect, or is that going to happen after April?
It's not 25,
Is that 25%?
you're 15.
15?
Yeah.
It's still 15, better than
15.
25.
Yeah,
Mhm.
We're cut, we said we're cut from,
From
Monthly expenditures,
Yeah.
cut 15% if you don't meet the requirements compared to the month prior, or the year prior.
Do you know when, I mean, if it doesn't work out, and if that does happen, one, do we know what the time frame of that is? And
Yes.
how that would affect this? Would it be before or after April?
Well, definitely before, because all of this has to go to Columbus, even before.
well, that won't happen then. It's happening as part of the monitoring process. For example, at the end of 2016 or September or somewhere along the way, they said we're not adhering to the budget and the plan that was submitted and approved. There's not a decision is made ahead of time. It's only after some action.
Right, but I'm talking about if they don't approve our plan, that's when we get the cut.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm
They're going to
sorry.
give us an opportunity to actually work on the budgets and our plan, because we've got some ideas and some cuts in that plan too. Whether they will work or not, but it's a projection.
They give you, Madam Chair, they give you 30 days. If you submit the plan and they don't accept it, you have 30 days to correct it.
Another one.
Ms. Kroll?
Yes.
Just speaking of the broad figures for the general fund, the projected revenues, you have at almost 11.5 million, and appropriations only at 10.5. What are your thoughts in keeping the spending $1 million lower than our revenue, projected revenues?
Well, our thoughts, like I say, is putting into place some controls. The reason it's less is because of the reasons being with the police and fire payouts, and also the elimination of or removal of the mechanics department, which is about $175,000, the movement of the monies for the senior to the special revenues and the corresponding expenses. So that all wrapped up into that, to come up with that number. But as always, we do try to budget, we don't have spending without purchase orders, and we monitor that. And of course, unless it's a dire emergency, which means it's a threat to the safety of the residents, the staff, then we don't always approve every purchase order that may come across. But like I said, we haven't had that problem because the staff has been very good and not even asking for things. And I know personally, I bought a lot of supplies on my own, for my staff.
What is our negative fund balance in the general fund?
What is it? It's, at this point, it's probably about 2.7, pretty much the same.
Are there other negative balances that the general fund is responsible for at this
No.
point?
Not at this time, and as I say, because of timing, the way the funds come in, at any given point, you could have a deficit, but you have to look at the whole picture. As I said, with the property taxes, they come in 5 times a year. So at some point, you'll see this huge balance, and then you'll see the balance being used as the year go on. And there's like seasonal kinds of expenses and revenue. So that's why I said starting out is not a 1/12 process. You have to look at the total, what's encumbered, and as well as what's spent to come up with a true picture.
What do you expect the expenditures in relation to, or because of the previous escrow fund to be? You mentioned it was $500,000 last year, or this year,
No, last year.
last year, and it will be, how much do you think it will be in 2015? This year?
About 150.
Okay. Any idea for 2016?
It's, it's hard to say, however, people, they come at various points to get releases from the building department. That's what determines what's released, whether they're satisfied. I think there's about, well, I don't want to say, because it's been recorded, but, there's a balance. It's way down from 14 when I came here.
You're talking about the $1 million fund balance that was there? Uh-huh.
But it wasn't quite a million. The fund had not been updated. So that's one of the things the auditors did, because they were here. Do you remember when I started in 14, right before they declared the city fiscal watch, they had already started meeting with the mayor. So they were on board when I came, and they were reconciling all of the accounts for their records.
So we've had about $650,000 paid out due to this former escrow fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Out of the
And
general fund.
how much is left in that fund?
To be paid out,
Yeah.
that's the number I said I don't want to state. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is. I have to see what's on the books. But it's,
That's a number that we could find out rather easily.
yeah,
Okay.
So
Is that
finances-
incorporated anywhere in this budget? I didn't see a line item for
No.
transfer or,
no. And that's why I can say that's one of the things we may have to consider when I go back and tweak this a little more, It's on the monthly financial statements that you receive, if you look on you'll find 736.
right, that's all updated. So whatever amount is reflected there at 736 is the amount that's left to be paid out.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now again, if you have any other questions, I think we've been here a little bit, and perhaps we need to end this particular meeting. If you have any other questions, I'll send them to Irene and share this information. She will share it with us. Unless you have a question that needs to be addressed now, let's go ahead.
I want to make a comment,
Sure.
Madam Chair. I thank you all for your patience and your indulgence in waiting. Like I said, we'll continue to work on the special revenue, and also we'll be tweaking this just a little bit more, but this just was to give you a broad overview of where we are, with the budget and what's going on. So it'll be tweaked a little more, just to ensure that we have included everything to the best of our knowledge, and send the special revenue expenses that correspond with the revenue statement that you receive. Our next meeting is next Monday, Tuesday?
16th, actually. We will have the public hearing announcements in the neighborhood news coming up. That's for the 21st. So, it looks like we have a lot of meetings here, but a lot of them are just announcements as well. So, but again, if you're not going to be able to make a meeting, just let us know. And the next council meeting is the 16th. Okay, if everybody is saying okay with this, then I will adjourn the meeting at 8:10. Thank you all for attending and for good questions.